Bedbug.
So I found this cool spot, picnic area, with a nice broad view of the Rio Grande as it cuts across the countryside. So we're in between Laredo and McAllen, a little bit closer to the Laredo side. Wanted to get Queen Bee in the air, get a view of the much more fertile and better watered landscape than further north. So let's pop Queen Bee up. There she goes. And up we go. Okay, that's about 250 feet. So right now we're looking down at the Rio Grande. So that's Mexico, obviously, on the other side. And then we can do some panning. Now it's headed downriver towards the coast. And here's the highway that runs along it, the 83. This is looking out into Texas. And probably hear the traffic behind me. And back around to, there's the Rio Grande again. So I was making my way down through Roma, smaller town, as we're getting into South Texas, and I got pulled over. So apparently I did not use my blinker for long enough as I was lane changing, but got to chatting with the police officer. He was very friendly, and he was telling me that this area is a happening spot. So I wanted to swing down to the Rio Grande here, and Roma sits essentially right on the river. We got a little park right up the river from me, but this area at night apparently is quite active with the Gulf Cartel, who controls this area of Mexico, essentially from here out to the coast. And this is one of the kind of rural-ish type spots that they like to move a lot of migrants and a lot of drugs. So I'm going to poke around here a little bit. I've also checked in with the police department to see about potentially doing a ride-along. Now, apparently there's a river, according to my police officer friend, a river somewhere out here, an island in the river somewhere out here, that there was some confusion as to whether or not it was Mexican or American, and the Gulf Cartel was using it as a stash location for a lot of drugs. And so just here recently, and I'm having a hard time pulling up any reporting on it, which may be why the police officer was asking if I was here to do a story on it, so this might be kind of recent. But apparently Border Patrol just did a big bust on it, and along with the Texas Rangers, and arrested a bunch of people and confiscated a bunch of drugs. Now, this is an island that I'm looking at right here, with two branches of the Rio Grande heading down either side. I noticed just looking at Google Maps, there's another island that the river forms a little bit further upstream. So I'm curious if either one of these are that location. But I'm going to explore around here a little bit. And actually first, I'm going to say hello to some puppies. Very cute very, very friendly. Also, something interesting to note, I've got a couple of Texas National Guard troops in a CBP pickup who I was chatting with, and that's the first time I've seen that. Texas National Guard using the equipment of CBP. Wanted to get another quick shot while I was down here. I wound up hiking a little bit further up a dirt road, and it led to an abandoned, it's like kind of party structure down here overlooking the river. There's a spot, I see some fishing lure stuff, so a spot where folks come down to fish, but also evidently a fairly straightforward place to be able to get across the Rio Grande with little inflatable rafts and whatnot. If you do a quick survey of Roma, Texas and news, you get this litany of drug busts that are made at the small border crossing here between here and the Mexican town on the other side. So, a front line in the battle against illicit drugs primarily, but also more and more migration over the last decade. All right, I hike down to that swimming park area downriver a little ways. Down here at this community park area, it's a chance to get down actually onto the river, but boy, that does not look like it'd be hard to cross. And if the river on the other side is similarly shallow, this would be a pretty easy spot to slip over, hit the road, and get up and into town. Hello, hello. So I am here in McAllen, Texas. Took a few days to edit up some video, and now I'm going to be exploring town down into Reynosa and then eventually over to Brownsville and Matamoros. But we have apparently, although it's a little hard to tell right now, a tropical storm rolling in today. And so the mood is one of nervous anticipation. Folks are prepping, putting sealant on things, making sure that stuff's buttoned up for the storm that is coming. We'll see how that goes. So I'm down here at the Rio Grande in Hidalgo, and this is the Hidalgo Reynosa Bridge crossing into the US. You can see down here we've got Rio Grande, and then just a big set of defensive works. We've got the wall and some blocked off area. But I can't go any further along here. The Texas National Guard rolling in the Border Patrol vehicle said, no, you gotta turn around. So no problem. I'm gonna work my way along the river here and just see what else I can find. So down here, not too far from the Hidalgo Reynosa Bridge, and we've got a spot where it's evident that a lot of folks are giving themselves up. There's a big secondhand goods market out here with lots of folks just sorting through lots of trash. But there's a portion of the wall, and then it looks like humanitarian groups have brought water and electrolytes. One of them's rolling away. Here, there's a big gate. And you can see some backpacks and stuff of folks who've abandoned things. But I'm guessing this is one of the spots where folks make their way across to get set up with their interviews. It looks like there's certain spots where that doesn't happen right at the border, just to keep things moving. And we just had a Border Patrol agent, or maybe Texas National Guard, pull up. Let me see if I can ask them a few questions. Okay, yes, confirmed. This is a spot where folks give themselves up. I got a heads up that yes, there is a tropical storm moving this way. He didn't expect it to be too bad. He just said it's going to get probably really, really rainy. So, I'm actually kind of curious what folks are leaving behind. I mean, lots of, it's like toiletries, basic clothes. Same. I wonder if they're giving up any IDs. If they keep that with them for processing. Oh, got some food. Here we go. Where's his wallet? Oh, it's empty. Looks like nothing of any serious interest. No documents. There's a wallet. No IDs. Okay. Well, we'll work our way up the road here a little bit, see what we can find. Just had a good talk with those in the know, and things are dead here in comparison to where they were in the past. The numbers have dropped to almost nothing, although it looks like there's some action up ahead of me, so I'm gonna roll in and see what happens. But lots of good info, and yes, there has not been a whole lot of migrant crossing action other than folks who are coming to get their interviews and stuff done with their CBP1 app appointments. We're not seeing lots of attempted getaways here like they are seeing in other places like Sunland Park. So let's see what we can come up on here. If there's anything interesting for us to check out. There's a pretty big drop off. This berm road up here is maybe 12-ish feet higher than the road below, and then there's this small bollard wall as well on top of it, punctuated periodically by these gates. And looks like we got some Border Patrol folks sitting up there. Real interesting that everything's dead. one thing that I'm finding is that not a lot of people know a lot about what's happening in other portions of the border. So folks are generally pretty interested in finding out what's happening and some of the stuff that I've been experiencing. So this was the CBP officer who I was chatting with just a few minutes earlier, who had to take off on a call because it sounded like there were some migrants who were trying to get across the wall. When he got down towards the area, they called him off. And so he had just pulled over by the gate there where people come across to turn themselves in for their CBP-1 applications. And so I got to chatting with him for a few more minutes, and he told me a funny story. So just to give a little bit of background on him, he had been a CBP officer there in Harlingen for about 6 years, and he said that he personally had apprehended more than 100,000 migrants over that time. He said there was a period from 2021 through 2023 where it was just completely overwhelming in terms of the number of people who were coming through, that they were apprehending, that were turning themselves in, or who were trying to get away, and that they were having to chase down. He had a number of interesting stories. One of them was about the way that the national news media tended to portray what was happening with the migrants. He said that you could tell what kind of story the national news media was wanting to tell based on which of the media outlets was pulling up. So if it was Fox News, you were going to get a certain perspective and it was consistent. And then essentially everybody else told a different story. So at one point, he said that they had apprehended about 16 migrants, and they had them all kind of lined up against the wall, and they were doing their intake paperwork and taking their shoelaces and checking them for weapons and asking them for ID if they had them, et cetera, et cetera. And so while they were doing that, CNN pulls up, and this is national level CNN. This isn't one of the local affiliates. And the anchor gets out, and the camera crew sets up, and the anchor walks up to the first of the migrants and starts interviewing them, asking them, why they came to the United States and what they're looking to do, and, what kind of oppression that they were fleeing from, whatever country they were coming from, say Guatemala or Costa Rica or Colombia or something. And the migrant said, oh, no, things weren't bad where they came from, that they were mostly just looking for a job, that they wanted to move ahead in life, and they wanted to take advantage of higher wages in the United States and the ability to get into the country to work. And that apparently was not the storyline that CNN was looking for. And so they moved on to the next migrant and asked them the same set of questions and got essentially the same answer from that migrant. And so then they worked their way down the line until they wind up getting to maybe the 9th or 10th person. And then they finally found somebody who was able to tell them what they wanted to hear, which was that they were coming from El Salvador or something, and they were fleeing gang oppression, something like that. So then they pulled that migrant out from the line, and with everybody else kind of lined up behind this person who was in the foreground, they started interviewing them about how bad things were in El Salvador, and then saying things like, oh, look at all of these people that are coming in. They're all lined up there, and they're all coming from such hardship and pain and suffering and all of this kind of thing. And the CBP officer said he and the other officers they were off camera, but they were just doubling over with laughter at how ridiculous it was that CNN was just bending over backwards to try and tell a particular story about the migrants. And yeah, that is peculiar, shall we say. He said that the vast majority of the migrants that they wind up taking in, it's clear that they're there for economic migration reasons, which is not a proper reason, or a reason that would allow you to pass a credible fear interview if that's the only reason that you're coming in. So one of the things that happens is migrants who are able to get what's called quote unquote legal aid are able to pass their credible fear interviews at a substantially higher percentage than the folks who don't. And this legal aid is usually given by a set of NGOs or non-governmental organizations that are there to make sure that the migrants know what's happening and what they need to do and that kind of thing. But really, what is likely happening is that they're being told what to say to pass the credible fear interview, whether or not it's true, knowing that the court date that they'll have is some number of years in the future, and that if they pass their credible fear interview, that they will be released into the United States, and there will be legal to work after 6 months of being released into the U.S. They got to file a piece of paperwork. And essentially they can work for years because the migrant backlog is so long for these credible fear asylum cases to make their way before a judge, that these are folks who are coming into the U.S. essentially being coached by these NGOs on what to say to be able to get in. And then essentially they're scot-free. They're off, they're working, and some of the preliminary data is that a lot of these folks are not showing up for their scheduled court dates, and they've already had a couple of years to embed themselves in the United States. So what we've seen more recently is a lot of these NGOs do not want to answer any questions about what they're doing with the migrants, both in trying to help them get across the border, providing aid once they've gotten across, providing legal aid. Some of the numbers that I've seen coming out of Syracuse University, who does a lot of the tabulation on, what's happening with illegal immigration around the U.S., is that migrants who get legal aid are able to pass their credible fear interviews at something like an 82 or 83% chance versus the folks who don't have legal aid. Only about 16% of them wind up passing their credible fear interviews. So that's pretty dramatic. And it's also why more and more your big news outlets pushing a particular political perspective are being discarded by the consumer. Nobody wants obvious shit served to them day after day after day, unless they're just a partisan hack and they don't really care about what's happening, and all they really want to do is get outraged by one thing or another. And it happens on absolutely both sides. These aren't people who are particularly oriented towards finding out what the truth is, reporting on it, or caring about it, and using that to drive the decisions that they make, who they vote for, etc. Anyway, so I'm at a park that I'm forgetting the name of, so let me look it up here really fast. Anzalduas Park. So it's at a bend of the Rio Grande. And apparently we're not supposed to go in because alligators. So I am not going to get too close because these episodes all too often turn into Jesse getting attacked by wild animals. I don't need more of that. But this is Rio Grande flowing through here. Turns into a bit of a lake, it looks like. This is it's just a big bend in the river. But straight across there is Mexico. Well, the breeze is starting to freshen down here in a little bit different spot of the Rio Grande. The birds are loving it. And we're starting to get a little bit of rain, so this tropical storm warning appears to be making itself known. Oh yeah, here comes the rain. Oh, shit. Okay, running back to the car. Oh my. I love it. Well, I'm gonna find a place to hunker down. There's too much weather for my liking. Well, here we are at the Brownsville Matamoros Bridge. So this is the last primary crossing as you go south in Texas. I'm guessing things are a little bit slow right now because we have this tropical storm that's set to blow in, but we're still getting occasional sun breaks in between lots of rain. And I'm kind of exploring the historic Brownsville downtown, which is in a state of gentrification where a lot of it doesn't look great, and then you've got some spots where folks have moved in and put in cool little coffee shops. And then, of course, there's a lot of your just kind of standard merchandise folks. You find these in front of every border where there's all manner of things being sold. So, I checked into my hotel here in Brownsville. So I'm at the and this is hilarious. So this is representative of the types of hotels that you're going to find close to the border, where they're glorified flop houses, basically. So happily, the building seems to have some kind of central AC. The vent is here. And it's probably only 80-ish degrees in here, which, yeah, it's better than the 90 and super humid outside. I don't have a bathroom, but I do have a sink in my room. The bed actually seems reasonable, not super thick or high quality mattress, but I've got a screw sticking through my wall. So I have to avoid getting caught on that. If I look out the window, neither of these windows open. They are painted shut many times over. And back here, I don't know how visible that is, apparently is the smoking spot. And I have a rather disturbing looking mattress that maybe a bed bug mattress sitting outside my window. Now, I did check my mattress for bed bugs. It looks pretty clean, so there's that. In the hallway, you are liable to meet all manner of people. I've got definitely at least one junkie hanging out in the hallway right now, and then a bunch of kids just running all over. So, great! This is going to be an experience.